The Chicago Bears tend to prefer free agents that their coaching staff has some kind of past connection with. And this year's upcoming free agent class is loaded with those.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. And on the show today, I wanted to do a bonus kind of early pre-free agency episode here, just to put some names out there to keep an eye on over these next few days as the quote-unquote legal tampering period, the early negotiation window starts Monday, and then the new league year starts Wednesday. The news is going to be coming fast and furious, and I wanted to get out in front of it just a little bit and put some names out there that we might want to keep an eye on here. That certainly, I'm not, predicting or reporting anything specifically, but just kind of going through the list of guys that would make a lot of sense, and we shouldn't be surprised if the Bears pull the trigger on any number of these guys across all the different positions of need. Because we've seen Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen prefer guys that they've worked with before. So if you sign a free agent who is a player that one of your coaches or your front office has worked with before, then you reduce a lot of the variables of, how well he fits in your scheme because you've coached him before, how well he fits in your locker room, how hard he practices, how hard he works in the weight room. Any of those kind of unknowns get reduced. I mean, obviously, if it's in the past, things change over time. It's not a surefire method, and they still missed on guys that they had familiarity with. But I think it's a comfort level that they get with players that I think makes these players more likely than a random player off the street, but certainly they may end up still signing some of those as well. But I start in the defensive backfield with Al Harris as your defensive backs coach. There are two former Cowboys safeties entering free agency, and at the time I'm recording this Sunday night, the Bears have not re-signed Kevin Byard at this point, not expected to re-sign Jaquan Brisker either. They're going to need at least one outside safety, if not two. Donovan Wilson is a free agent from the Cowboys who's been with the Cowboys his whole career, and Al Harris coached him there. Can play some free and some strong safety. Certainly wasn't great last year, but it can step up and play well against the run. He had a bit of a down year, some missed tackles in there as well. So he would be a versatile piece, or an older established veteran. Xavier Woods was, I believe, a cap casualty by the Tennessee Titans, but he was with Al Harris in Dallas as well. But definitely a better coverage defender than Donovan Wilson, but Xavier Woods is a little older and also coming off of an injury, so there's going to be some question marks there at that spot. At the cornerback spot, another one of those guys who used to play on the Cowboys with Xavier Woods and with Al Harris, a cornerback Chidobe Awuzie from the Baltimore Ravens. If he could be a starting caliber option opposite Jalen Johnson if the Bears want to get some more competition in there. Amik Robertson from the Detroit Lions, Ben Johnson and the offensive staff have all seen him be a starting caliber, low-end starting caliber, but a starting caliber corner there nonetheless. Another name out there to at least keep an eye on is Trayvon Diggs, who went to the Packers last season. The Cowboys released him mid-season. Packers claimed him on waivers, so his contract was pretty expensive just for 1 year. He's definitely going to be a low-budget type option there that I'm not counting on him being great, but if he wants to come in here and get the Nishan Wright rehabilitation tour with reuniting with Al Harris, I think that could make a lot of sense for both parties. Same thing for Marshawn Lattimore, released by the Washington Commanders. Certainly nowhere near the player he once was with Dennis Allen on the New Orleans Saints, but if he would come cheap and get a little bit of the rehabilitation tour here, come here, start opposite Jalen Johnson and kind of build up his name again, I think that could make a lot of sense as long as the price tag remains low. I'm not counting on him to be in some massive upgrade or shutdown corner opposite Jalen Johnson, but someone who has some upside and certainly some scheme familiarity and some experience that you might like there. If the Bears want to spend big at cornerback, it would be Alontae Taylor from the Saints, a guy that Dennis Allen coached and I think drafted with the Saints for a number of years, but he's probably going to be a little bit outside of the Bears' price range. I want to run through some other defensive players before we turn our attention to the offense momentarily. Linebackers, Demario Davis from the Saints. Very, very late in his career, but still playing at a high level, still has some juice. He would be a great replacement for Tremaine Edmonds, a short-term option for sure, but on a one-year type of deal. I think that could be a lot of fun. I fully expect at this point that the Bears will sign Alex Anzalone from the Detroit Lions, probably Monday. Everyone is talking around that. It's kind of this hint, wink, wink that there's been some perhaps contact before there's allowed to be contact with Alex Anzalone's agent, and all signs are pointing to the Bears signing Alex Anzalone from the Lions, and who was drafted by the Saints and Dennis Allen to be their Tremaine Edmonds replacement. But I think Bobby Okereke from the New York Giants would make a lot of sense if his price is right. He worked with the Bears linebackers coach on the Colts for a few seasons back there. And same thing with EJ Speed from the Houston Texans. If you want somebody who's been a little bit of a, like a rotational starter guy who's going to be cheaper, just good depth, maybe even replace DeMarco Jackson. EJ Speed was with the Colts as well, his whole career before joining the Texans this past season. A couple of guys along the defensive line before we move on to the offense. A defensive tackle, David Onyemata from the Falcons, was drafted by the Saints and Dennis Allen a number of years ago. Sheldon Rankins of the Texans, drafted by the Saints and Dennis Allen a number of years ago. Those guys are both available as well. And one name I'll throw out here that I'm not expecting to happen, but I think it would surprise a lot of people, is Larry Ogunjobi, who the Bears tried to sign, was it now 3 or 4 years ago? They agreed to terms and then failed his physical, and then was kind of Ryan Poles' first botched free agent signing. He's a free agent again, and the Bears defensive line coach, Jeremy Garrett, I think his name is Jeremy Garrett, anyway, coached Larry Ogunjobi on the Cleveland Browns. And so there's a coaching staff connection in addition to Ryan Poles previously wanting this player, and he should be a lot cheaper now. And if the Bears are trying to revamp their defensive tackle position, it could make some sense. I also look at Jordan Elliott from the San Francisco 49ers. He was on that defensive line in Cleveland, as was Andrew Billings. So it wouldn't totally stun me if the Bears re-signed Andrew Billings and liked him more than we might have suspect they did. Some quick edge rushers. Obviously, Cam Jordan from the Saints worked with Dennis Allen a ton in New Orleans on the older side, but still has plenty in the tank. He would be a nice upgrade. Von Miller was drafted by Dennis Allen when he was a defensive coordinator of the Broncos for one season. So there's a connection there. I'm not sure if at this stage of his career it's exactly what the Bears would want there, but you never know. And Jadeveon Clowney, similar conversation. Like, he was on that Browns defensive line with the Bears defensive line coach. He's kind of the one-year mercenary guy. He might be a little more expensive than what the Bears want to spend on the edge. But if you're looking for cheaper options that might fit the Bears budget, Mike Dana from Kansas City was drafted there when Ryan Poles was in the front office. He was a cap casualty this offseason. And then Marcus Davenport, who's been to the Lions the last couple seasons, but originally a first-round pick by the New Orleans Saints as well. Plenty of guys across all these different defensive positions of need that the Bears coaching staff has worked with before. Not all home run A-plus signings, but a lot of those guys could be affordable and short-term options here, because you don't want to go too big in free agency and think that's going to change your team. You gotta build through the draft and supplement the free agency. These are some guys that I think would supplement well. Some other fun names on offense, including a couple of potential curveballs for Ben Johnson to consider. We'll take a look at who this Bears coaching staff on that side of the ball has worked with that's entering free agency next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed-sponsored jobs. Indeed-sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, with the skills, experience, and location you prefer, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed worldwide, according to Indeed data. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed-sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed-sponsored jobs. The Locked On Bears podcast is also brought to you by Gametime. We live in a world where we can stream anything, order food in minutes, and carry supercomputers in our pockets, and somehow buying tickets to a live game still feels complicated. Between hidden fees, jumping prices, and endless steps, there has to be a better way, and that's why I use the Gametime app. I've got it on my phone because it gives fans the advantage and makes getting tickets simple, whether it's NFL games, concerts, comedy, whatever you're into. Over the weekend, I went to see the band Too Many Zoos playing in my town, and it was great. Great show, and I got my tickets on the Gametime app because I could see my view from my seat before I purchased my ticket, and they have all-in pricing where all the fees are up front, and there's no surprises at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets. with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem our code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Defense is going to be the priority and where I think we see the majority of the Bears' free agent dollars and energy spent. But I do think there's some other little spots on offense that they might consider filling holes in depth here and there. And if they have to happen to clear a little extra money and want to make a little splash, I think there's some room to do that as well. Like left tackle would kind of be the one spot that maybe they would consider spending some real money at. And of course, everyone's already kind of pointed at Taylor Decker, asking for his release from the Detroit Lions, was Ben Johnson's left tackle for a long time. I suspect he will cost more than the Bears are willing to pay for left tackle, especially because I do think they have a lot of faith in Ozzie Trapillo, and I think it's more likely they do a cheaper left tackle option like Braxton Jones, or one other name I'll throw in is Landon Young from the New Orleans Saints. They drafted him, and including Bears offensive line coach Dan Rochar when he was the Saints offensive line coach, a swing tackle for them. He's started at both sides, but never been a full season starter, but someone who could come in, compete, and push Theo Bennett and push Karan Amagaji, not guaranteed a starting spot, but just add some outside competition into that room. I think Landon Young would make a lot of sense if Dan Rochar, the offensive line coach, wants to keep that development train moving forward. The Bears also could use a new number 3 tight end if they're not going to re-sign Durham Smythe. And also, if there's any plan or inkling that a Cole Kmet trade could happen, then maybe they would want to invest in more tight end depth. I think the top name or the biggest name that price is going to be the key here, because we're talking about number 3 tight end, so they got to be cheap. But Foster Moreau from the New Orleans Saints has been there for a number of years, dating back to Dennis Allen, also dating back to Dan Rochar, and he would be, I think, above and beyond the best number 3 tight end in the league if he would sign cheap to come to play for coaches he knows in an offense where the third tight end played quite a bit this past season. It would be a good role for him, but it would be a step down from the starting job he had kind of been in a rotation with anyway in New Orleans. And can I throw one wild card name at you that I'm really intrigued by? Would it stun you if Ben Johnson went out and signed Taysom Hill from the New Orleans Saints? Wouldn't that be just the kind of trick play weapon that Ben Johnson would dream of, to have a guy who can play quarterback and tight end and some receiver and some special teams? I think price would obviously have to be the big factor here. You're not going to see the Bears go out and try and spend big bucks to add kind of a gimmicky gadget to their offense, right? They're going to make him a prioritized weapon, and he's 35, turns 36 this offseason. So expectations and price would need to be low for Taysom Hill, but he could be kind of a number 3 tight end in this offense, plus a little bit of a jack of all trades and just the trick play, magic trick for Ben Johnson. I think that could be a lot of fun, and there's enough coaching staff familiarity from Dennis Allen working with him in New Orleans, and they know what he's like and how he carries himself in a locker room. So I just want to throw that name out there as something that I don't think it's going to happen, but it would be fun, and it wouldn't totally shock you. It would make a lot more sense after you got off the shock factor of, whoa, they signed Taysom Hill, and then you think about it for a minute, it's like, yeah, that actually makes a ton of sense and could be a really fun fit for the Chicago Bears. Not getting my hopes up, though. Just wanted to throw that name out there as someone who I think would be an interesting name to connect this offseason. But one of Ben Johnson's Detroit Lions tight ends, Shane Zylstra, kind of their number 3 tight end, he is a free agent this offseason. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if they just moved on from Durham Smythe and brought in the Lions tight end instead and said, boom, this guy knows the offense, plug and play, good to go. We talked about a number of receivers with Bears coaching staff connections after the DJ Moore trade. So if you want more on these guys, go back and take a listen to that podcast. I don't know if it was that Wednesday or Thursday podcast this week, or was that even Friday? Nonetheless, this past week we talked about him, but I'm just give you the list again. Christian Kirk from the Texans, who was with Press Taylor on the Jaguars. You've got Gabe Davis from the Bills, who was with Press Taylor on the Jaguars. You've got, and then some former Lions receivers. You've got Josh Reynolds from the Jets, who was Ben Johnson's number 2 and number 3 with the Lions for a few years. Tim Patrick from the Jaguars, who was Ben Johnson's number 3 for a number of years with the Lions. And then Khalif Raymond, who was currently the Lions' number 3 receiver and kick returner. Any of those guys would make a lot of sense as cheaper DJ Moore replacements to be number 3, number 4 guys that just rotate in the depth. If the Bears want to upgrade the backfield depth, one running back I'll throw out to keep an eye on is Raheem Mostert spent this past season with the Las Vegas Raiders, but he was obviously with the Miami Dolphins for a number of years, where he worked with Bears running backs coach Eric Studesville, led the NFL in touchdowns in 2023. Like, if you're just talking about a number 3 running back who still has some upside and some pass catching ability, maybe he's not as fast as he used to be because he's about to be 34, but like, add a veteran into the room for more depth, he would make some sense to me. And a couple of backup quarterback options. If the Bears get the right call on, or they're having calls about Tyson Bagent and are maybe looking at dealing him for a draft pick at some point here in the coming weeks, and they need a new backup quarterback. I had heard through the grapevine, before Ben Johnson was hired as the Chicago Bears head coach, when he was still with the Detroit Lions, I had heard that Ben Johnson really liked Sam Howell coming out of North Carolina. He was with the Commanders for a number of years. He spent this past season with the Philadelphia Eagles. It wouldn't stun me that if the Bears got rid of Tyson Bagent, that Sam Howell could be a young, cheap backup option for him to develop in Chicago. The other name, Herndon Hooker from the New York Jets, was the backup quarterback in Detroit for Jared Goff the last couple of seasons before this. He is technically an exclusive rights free agent, so the Jets can tender him and make sure he doesn't get away. But if the Jets choose not to tender Hendon Hooker, say that fast, 5 times fast, tender Hendon Hooker 5 times fast. If he becomes an unrestricted free agent, that would be an easy one to connect the dots to. And then Carson Wentz, if they need another veteran, if say, Case Keenum wants to retire and they just need an old guy who's been experienced. Carson Wentz was on the Eagles with Press Taylor as his quarterbacks coach, and maybe I don't think he was offensive coordinator in Philadelphia at all, but quarterbacks coach for a number of years in Philadelphia. He was spent the last year with the Vikings, but Wentz could be a veteran quarterback option as well there. But boom, that was like, I don't know, 30 or 40 free agents. I didn't actually count the list of guys, but guys with coaching staff connections to the Chicago Bears that across literally every single position, I think, except for like center, I guess, that would make some sense out in free agency. Speaking of center, as you're listening to this podcast, we're still going to do our regular Monday show breaking down the Garrett Bradbury trade, as well as the Tremaine Edmonds release and the dealing of Max Crosby somewhere else. So go take a listen to that podcast episode next, and then keep making Locked On Bears your first listen today and every single day, even for these bonus episodes, putting this one out late on Sunday to get ahead of free agency. Just make sure you come on back. Make Locked On Bears your first listen once again tomorrow for another opportunity to bear down.